the traditional owners of the country where I am, the Awabakal people, and of course wherever you are sitting around Australia, or if I'm assuming that we've only got an Australian audience at this point in time. This is a special webinar for me because I've been really interested in how this cultural burning has come to fruition now. And so we're really delighted to have Jessica Wegner with us today. And Jessica is both a co-chair and co-founder of the Fire Sticks Alliance. So welcome, Jessica. And also we've got Laurie Perry with us today from Wonnarua country. And Laurie is the Chief Executive Officer of the Wonnarua Nation Aboriginal Corporation. So separate to the LAUC, Laurie's organisation owns and manages land on behalf of traditional owners, and Laurie can explain a bit more about that as we go. But look, what we're planning to do is just have a chat really about this this process and what's happened in the evolution of what I say, cultural burns, and then we've got a short video, we've got some photographs and that sort of thing, and we'll take everyone through it. If you did want to ask a question, we've got the Q&A button down the bottom of your screen that you can put questions and answers into, and we'll have an opportunity there to read out those questions and answer them. So look, firstly, Jessica, I think we'll start with you. And this is the first time I've really done this in an interview format, because oftentimes we've had, PowerPoint presentations and death by PowerPoint and so on, but we thought we'd do it a bit different. We've got a very, very small yarning circle here today. But Jess, you're the co-founder of Fire Sticks. Obviously, there's been a link and a bond between you and Victor Stephenson. Victor, who's written his now sort of famous book, Fire Country. How did that come about? How did Fire Sticks first start off as an organisation?
Yeah, I guess thank you, Michael, for that introduction. And I just also like to acknowledge the lands in which I'm calling from as well, which is also the Awabakal lands, and pay my respects to elders past and present, and also acknowledge my ancestry being Nyampa Wangaiban, and also German and Prussian heritage as well. So I guess my journey with Fire Sticks started outside of the idea of setting up an organisation. It was just as a young, I was very young, 19. I was working down at Kosciuszko National Park, and I was mentored by the wonderful Rod Mason down there, who is from Ngarigo country down there. I'd also like to acknowledge him for his contributions to my part. And I guess that journey had discussions with national parks about applying cultural fire, and obviously at the time, I was 19 in 2006, so that was quite some time ago, and there was no policy for cultural burning at that point. So we were pushing for the ability to be actually apply fire in a cool manner. And my journey then travelled back up this way, which is where I spent most of my teenage years in the Hunter region. And we were given the opportunity to have Victor come down in 2015 to do a workshop with us on country to share the application of cultural fire in its traditional form, and to try and reinstate that knowledge within our local community. From there, 2016 came along, and I was able to go up to Cape York, which is where the Fire Sticks Alliance sort of started to form. So 2016, we were at the National Indigenous Fire Workshop, which is the journey where Victor started with those old fellas that he makes mention of. And I'd also like to pay my respects to those old fellas, Doctors Tommy and Doctors George Musgrave, for their contributions to getting this knowledge out there. So this journey began by the meeting of the other original directors of the Fire Sticks Alliance, and we all came together and decided that this is something that we need to be able to advocate for in community, and bring that to fruition. Basically, we felt like there was a responsibility that both Victor and Oliver Costello and others, Dr. Peter Stanley, and a whole group of us from around Australia, basically Tassie, all the way to Victoria, Queensland, New South Wales. We're all there to start the Fire Sticks Alliance journey.
So tell us, Jess, what's the general, I'll say theory for want of a better word, what's the general idea behind the cultural burn and the difference between that and maybe what, I'll say national parks or others have tried to do in terms of back burning or fuel reduction or that sort of thing? What's the difference and what makes it work?
Yeah, sure. So we're talking about cultural burning. So it is a practice that has been done by Indigenous people, not only in Australia, but around the world, that has been applied over thousands of years. So it's a methodology that's innate within a person. So it's trained in a way that you're learnt to speak for it. You're given a totem for a vegetation type. You're taught by your mothers as a child how to apply fire, and you grow with that knowledge. So it's a practitioner style application, and you learn to know what it does for the environment in which you live and what it does for yourself. So people would be aware of that sense of giving, and that's what this is based on, that essence of giving as well, because that there's a regeneration that's happening. There's also the need to apply cultural fire in a way that supports a vegetation type to support you. So there's reciprocity there between you and the nature in which you're applying fire. So you're applying fire to hunt, you're applying fire to make sure that there's enough berries, yams, that you're supporting the ecosystem in which you're living and breathing. So the difference between cultural fire and the way that we apply fire with the regulatory bodies being, RFS and Fire and Rescue and others, is in the way in which we are considered with the environment, the elements that go into the discussion around the right type of burn, the seasonal aspects of that burn, and that we don't actually use any accelerants as well.
So I've heard about the notion of the cool burn. Could you explain a little bit more about that, the sort of a cool climate burn, or if that's a seasonal aspect of it?
Yeah, so when it comes to a cool burn, it's applied with just one circle of fire. So you just drop a matchstick or your flame, and it just starts to slowly trickle and eat the cured pieces of grasses or leaves that are on a land that you're applying that fire. So you have the ability then to be able to walk with that and get really close and interact with that fire. So with a cool burn, you can actually walk with it. So if you've ever been on a fire ground, put it in the chat if you have. But with the RFS or Fire and Rescue, there's a certain distance that you need to stay away from that fire because of the heat, basically, and your safety. With a cultural fire, there's an element of you can actually get quite close when it's applied appropriately, and the seasonality and all of those sort of things are taken into consideration. So when I talk about seasonality, it's not just one season. To develop the right timing for a cultural burn, there's actually, sometimes 9, 12, 6, 14, 16 in some cases, different seasons to monitor during your constant being in that vegetation type. And I mean, when I say vegetation type, I mean the vegetation type. It cannot, you can't just apply one type of fire application in all vegetation types. So stringy bark, spotted gum, ironbark, all have different seasonal aspects in which you apply cultural fire.
And I've got some photographs that we can maybe show later, but it basically shows that the ground cover, the dead leaves, and some of the grass, some of the leaves have burnt, but left other parts higher up, unscathed and untouched. And I guess that's very different to what we've seen in over the January, February bushfires, where basically there was such a heavy fuel load and it's so hot and uncontrolled and with wind, and just decimates everything in its path. It seems to me to be a much more a calming type of a fire that doesn't have heaps of black smoke. What's it like being in amongst that?
Yeah, it's quite a spiritual experience. Hey, so like you said, there's no black smoke. So what's an indicator of a good cultural burn is the white smoke that just goes into the atmosphere very thin, and you want to see the black ash, not the white ash. So there's all of these. That's just one indicator. As Uncle Laurie and others doing the training program in the Hunter will know, there are many indicators that we use and elements that predict that we're doing a good cultural burn.
Thank you, Jess. Look, we will bring Uncle Laurie in. Laurie, I'm assuming you're not on mute at the moment. So Laurie Perry, for those that have joined a bit later, because we've had another 10 or so people join in the last 5 minutes or so. So Laurie Perry is the Chief Executive Officer of the Wanneroo Nation Aboriginal Corporation. Laurie, could you firstly just explain what WNAC is and does?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, g'day everybody. How's it all going? Yes. So, the Wanneroo Nation was formed in 1999, and basically out of a number of mining agreements later, which kicked off the process. So when we decided to put in an application for on a mining lease for native title, well, we actually passed the registration test. So, and that was because we gave enough information, which we already had. And as you know, with Mabo, there was a lot of issues, and the 10-point plan, which the Howard government did, and sort of weaned it down to a right to negotiate. So we had the right to negotiate on a number of mining companies up in the valley. And we did that through one apical ancestor. So we've got over 500 members and over 300 children, and they're basically from one apical ancestor. So we've got our mob all over the place, and their traditional country is parts of the Hunter Valley. So that's how it was formed.
So WNAC has some land that it looks after, and you're custodians of that land. And so, how did you get involved with Fire Sticks and what was going on there?
Yeah, that was a funny one. Well, I think local land service was doing a program, and they contacted me, and I said, yeah, I'll have a look at this. And so we had a couple of properties there. So the first property we did was out at Pioneer Road, and it was full of mother of millions. So, and we had the fire brigade there, and I was there, and we had Jimmy Miller was there, and my cousin, and a few of the local lads, and it was an amazing kickstart to the journey. So, I meet Victor Stephenson. This is 2 years ago. So basically, I've seen this on TV, and I'm going to witness it live. So I was very intrigued how it works. What I wasn't prepared for is when Victor's going around lighting fires all over the place, and I'm going, I've got to put those fires out. The poor old fire brigade guy was there going, and he was an old fella, and he's going, yeah, I think we've got to put it out. And Victor's going, no, don't put it out. Anyway, it was travelling along and there was a nice bit of wind as well, and yeah, it was just an amazing thing to see. And I was blown away, and I'm going, this is something that we got to keep pursuing. And educate more people about. So, you know, we got rid of the mother of millions. Native grasses came back about 6 months later. You could see that. And we didn't use any chemicals, you know, so it was a win-win for the environment. But one of the most intriguing things was the regeneration of the native grasses coming back through as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that fascinated me.
And I'll just go back to Jess, because I just want to talk a little bit about the carbon. You know, in a large bushfire, you know, I'm aware that, you know, a lot of that, you know, when you burn everything, you get a lot of release of carbon dioxide into the air and so on. But if you burn a small amount, then in the theory is that a lot of that carbon stays where it was within the trees and that sort of thing. I'm guessing that also with a small burn, the carbon on the ground, it just goes back into the ground, into the soils and things like that. Have you got any sort of theory around that, how it works? What can you tell us about that, Jess?
Yeah, well, what I can say, Michael, is that Australia was formed on the use of cultural fire, and it adapted to it for thousands and thousands of years, and it needs it. You know, its people grew with fire being a huge part of their landscape. So to reduce the amount of CO2 that we're seeing at the moment because of the, you know, the disconnection of cultural fire burners in country, is a huge plan. Like it is, like that would be an incredible thing to be able to achieve. So I guess when you're applying cultural fire, it is, you know, the elements of what you were saying there are foundational. That, you know, you're applying a fire that's low intensity, it's cool, it's you can see that the puff of smoke doesn't buff out, and it's not black, it's not, you know, you're not choking on it, so you can actually get close to it, and it feels very thin, that sort of smoke, and it's also really good for the soils. So what you can see in when you walk in country with a cultural burn, you can see that it's just the top surface that is slightly warm, and underneath it's cool and wet still. So that's what, you know, another indicator there. You're pulling out all the indicators out of me. But yeah, that's a good sign that you're applying, you know, something that yeah, that's influential of what a cultural fire burn is about.
And you mentioned earlier to me that you know, there are various different areas around the Hunter where the, you know, cultural burning is being embraced. Can you tell us a little bit about, you know, whereabouts and who with and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so obviously Uncle Laurie, so he's been heavily involved in the last 2 years, and we also have many land councils from all the way from the Central Coast to Lake Macquarie, Newcastle, all the way out to Taree, and all the way out west in the Hunter region. So I guess these guys have all been involved with some of our training programs. So we've been able to come into communities where they've held workshops where schools and you know, people that are interested in cultural burning, like city council and ecologists and fireys and all of those guys get to be on the fire ground, but also a part of the discussion, which is integral to applying and trusting that fire is going to be able to be applied in a cultural manner. So it's not just a, you know, you turn up and you want the fire out by this time. There's a lot of time and effort and love for what you do that these guys in the Hunter have been developing over the number of years that they've been holding workshops with Victor, being taught by Victor, and also being shown how to monitor from a cultural perspective our key indicators for applying a cultural burn, and monitoring those to not necessarily prove the concept, but support that cultural burning should be done this way. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to add one tiny little other thing about the carbon stuff, which I'm finding it has evolved from the training certification framework that we're developing in the Hunter, a curriculum that's based around cultural fire credits. So that's a similar system to those carbon credits that would be associated with the sequestering as well as invading of fire.
And how many people would you say have been through the training that you're referring to?
Yeah, so we've managed to have, the first year was with Uncle Laurie and the land councils. There was 5 land councils, 25 students was the first time. Since then and prior to then, there's been people that have gone up to our national Indigenous fire workshops, which are held all around Australia. Cape York, down on Yuin country, and down on the Barmah National Park in Victoria. We've been rotating around Australia as we go, hosting these so that there's people that are learning about these training programs and being able to experience them on a wide scale.
Fantastic. So look, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to attempt to share the screen and play the short video. But before I do that, I just want to go back to you, Laurie. Just your general sort of what's it like being and sort of seeing this happen and seeing it that it's okay, and that everything didn't catch fire and that. From your experience and those when you've got others around you, are they kind of how do they react to it when they see this working?
Oh, look, the reaction is amazing. And like I said, Jimmy Miller, my cousin, he's 70, and he hasn't seen this in New South Wales. He's seen it on TV, same as me. And he's just over the moon. He's going, wow, this is just unbelievable. So I even like the fire brigade, he was shocked. He's there with the hose going, look, I got to put it out. I got to put the fire out. And it was just the reaction. And then, from just seeing it and seeing what was done, thousands of years ago was just on this earth today. It's changed the way I think about, fire and how important it is. So, fire doesn't discriminate. Fire brings people together. Fire actually, you have to put it out, But if you can manage it and respect it, geez, you can do some wonderful things with this earth and bring back what it was, thousands of years ago, which the landscape hasn't changed. Human beings changed the landscape. Yeah. So it's been here for thousands of years. We just need to manage it better. And, we weren't expecting a catastrophic fire and, bang, it came through. And I'm not saying cool burning would stop a catastrophic fire, but what I'm saying, it would give people time enough to manage their land in a sensible way, a culturally appropriate way, that it gives you time. Time to think and plan of what you can do if a catastrophic fire is coming. You've got plenty of time because there's no fuel on the ground, and and if you're managing it properly, then, you have a better chance of survival.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Laurie. So look, I'm going to play this video now. It goes for about 7.5 minutes. So just to all of the audience, there's an opportunity here to type questions into the Q&A. We've got one at the moment. I'll leave that until we finish the video. But if you've got any other questions, please type them in, and then we'll go through them and we'll do that. I'll just share this screen now, which is this one. And you should have audio, I hope.
Knowledge is a powerful thing, and when we give that to the young people, it changes their lives and it gives them hope. And I see that all over the country where I've been doing this work. And people starting to realise, that, yeah, there is problems in the country and there is problems within our communities, and we need to start turning things around. And so that's why the workshops are happening like this, and that's why we're working with trying to get a training course going and trying to get young people reconnected with the landscapes. And why we're doing this course for these young people is to train practitioners and to get the expertise out there.
Some of those students have come in and they have no experience at all in conservation land management. But what they do have is their traditional knowledge that has been passed down to them. So within this course, we do have that combination of science and traditional knowledge. And what they find is they're learning that Western science, but also they're getting that connection to country.
Once you start talking about cultural fire or the need to return traditional fire knowledge into an area, you start having these conversations, you can start seeing the sickness that's in the environment. So the whole development of this comes from that need to heal the landscape, to continuously manage the Australian landscape as a whole. I guess I can see in each of the participants, they want to be a fire practitioner. They want to be able to manage country. They want to be able to transfer and teach this knowledge as well. It's up to the students what they do with that knowledge afterwards, but we're supporting them to build their capacity and understanding and have all of these experiences that culturally they would have from birth as a right.
The cultural burning side and the traditional knowledge is really important and very special, and we feel that that's you need to support that, but we also see a need that if the rangers are going to work in the real world with councils and government agencies and private landholders, they also need practical skills and formal qualifications to back that up. Also, they develop skills in how to develop up fire management plans, vegetation assessment plans, and regeneration plans. So by doing that, they can then take those skills and actually develop up a project, run the project, monitor and evaluate that project. And so they've got those formal skills along with the traditional knowledge.
It's amazing. I'm so lucky to be part of this. It's amazing culturally. You can see what it does for the environment. I get a diploma out of it. I get to teach other people about it, and it's something that this country relies on. It's necessary for it to sustain it, to keep our ecosystems going, keep our biodiversity, and just keep the country healthy, really.
Fire is it's a very nasty thing if you do it wrong, and Australians have a mortal fear of fire. They do, and I'm hoping that these cultural cool burns, which is a slower process, will bring the respect back for fire. And as a cultural burn, we can walk with days with fire at our knees, a metre away. You can't do that with a wildfire. We're being realistic when we do these burns. We know that we have acts and legislation and regulation that we have to follow, but we do that in a culturally sensitive manner. This will change the biodiversity of this site. There are cases where plants that haven't been seen in that area are now starting to come back because they're in a cultural burn site.
When we did the burn, I thought it was, in that short period of time, it was pretty good. But then the catastrophic fires hit it straight after, probably a couple of weeks later. And the evidence sort of showed that it worked. The house is still standing there, and the fires went around it. But unfortunately, it was just timed right. And I still can't believe that the house is still here. There's no damage to it at all.
bit shocked and very impressed as well.
What LLS is doing is extremely important in pioneering change within agencies to work the right way with the people. You know, I can say they've probably been the most cooperative agencies working for community and with community around the cultural burning aspects. And it's been really good that they've been able to support the right process and to support community leadership. And most of all, that builds good relationships. And that should be an example for other agencies to follow the right way to work with community.
Yeah, well, we have shown through this model here in the Hunter that the Aboriginal community and government organisation can work together to achieve a common goal, which is to develop and build the capacity of the Aboriginal community, but at the same time achieve the outcomes the community wants, which is to see a healthy landscape, to see cultural burn happening, so you don't have these wildfires. And you have the Aboriginal community leading the way, and a government organisation supporting them.
Lovely video. Okay, now I'm trying to make sure I'm doing this right and not sharing my screen. Okay, now we're back together again. Look, there are quite a few questions in there, so I'll go to them. But gee, Laurie, Valley Arms, beautiful. That's your property that you're talking about, or WNAC's property. I know it's been set aside to be managed in perpetuity, through the biodiversity offset agreement a while back now. And there's a house in there.
That's right.
Can you tell us that story? So there was a burn a couple of weeks before the big fire went through?
Yeah, there was a burn that was done on top of the ridge near Yango National Park. We probably could have done a bit more, but Victor decided to use that area there. And so we did the top part of it. And then so when the catastrophic fires came through, when we went back there, you could see, and through that air shot, you could see, the difference and that it made. So, I'm waiting to go back there, the house to be just gone, but no, went straight over the top of it, went around, and probably that's what saved it. So it's just careful planning, Michael, and it's a biobanking site. We did that with you guys and ARTC, so significant part of country. So yeah, I think we'll go back and give it another hit and manage it.
Thanks, Laurie. All right, so look, I'll go to the Q&A now, which is, well, actually, before I do, is there anything, Jess, having just watched that video, is there anything that kind of jumps out to you that, to me, just seeing that, that light wafting of smoke through the trees, it's pretty special.
Yeah, it was a really beautiful burn that went through there. The group of participants that were there and the energy that they put into the time to be with that fire and to walk with it and to go overtime. I think how long did that go for, Uncle Laurie? It was like a good couple of, a whole day and a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the cultural protocols that go into place, like there was it's a very special process, and it's really nice to see it articulated in that video.
All right, so without further ado, I'll go to some questions. This one's probably for you, Jess. Do utilities like Transgrid, Ausgrid, Essential Energy participate in these programs to improve management of vegetation in their easements? You aware of that?
Yeah, I haven't actually been contacted by TransGrid, Ausgrid or Essential Energy, but I have been contacted, and the Fire Sticks has been contacted in relation to easements. So there's definitely potential. We do have on our website an EOI for cultural burns. So these type of organisations and any landholders can pop their EOIs in our online Fire Sticks website, and somebody from our department will get through to them and organise for the cultural burning practitioners in their region to be activated.
Okay, well, I think that answers some of the other questions as well, but I'll go to this one. Are soil types taken into account?
Yeah, that's one of those indicators too. So definitely. So soil types come in many colours, and that's derived by the vegetation type that they live in. I guess you can't get certain vegetation types growing in certain types of soil. So that also informs the right timing and the seasonal strategy for applying cultural fire as well.
Okay, and then we've got one person asking, so this is Liam saying, I live in Newcastle, how can I get involved and learn? Are you going to point them to your website or to local land services? Or?
Yeah, Toby Wellboat over at Local Land Services would like a call. But also, our website has got some pretty good information, but also the Living Knowledge Place, which is Victor Stephenson's own website, which has a lot of our cultural burns, and we usually pop in on the map of Australia when we've got a cultural burn about to go ahead, so you can see that it starts flashing red, and then you can pop on to the date that's going to go.
Very good, thank you. Now, Katie Birrell has asked, saying, thanks very much for the information. It's been wonderful. I'm currently studying development studies at Newcastle Uni, and learning about Indigenous land management has been my absolute favourite so far. Is there any programs, training, workshops in Newcastle or the Hunter region that I can get involved with? Is that the same answer, basically, to go to the website?
Yeah, and definitely. And, Toby's definitely aware of when we've got some training programs and whether there's going to be, open days for the community to get involved too. Mm-hmm. So we'll definitely keep us updated. There's also workshops at firesticks.org.au, and you can just ask that sort of question, and it's all in a Gantt chart that we pull out and pop it into those sort of questions.
Okay, and then Ian's asked a similar question. Now, available to Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people to attend? Yep, fantastic.
And with membership. If anyone wants to get involved as well, the Survey Monkey is on our website. So if you have something that you'd like to participate in, or a certain type of element within cultural fire, then you're sort of sent through that process of the Survey Monkey to circle you, if that makes sense. So we've got lots of different fire circles, cultural fire circles, and if you want to go to a National Indigenous Fire Workshop, or you want to participate in something, then that's the streamline process.
Okay, great. Now, Ian asked another question about the slow burn process. Is it feasible to do this slow burn process on a scale that is required to prevent the sort of catastrophic fires that we saw throughout New South Wales last year? I'm guessing the answer to that is a fairly complex one, but give us a shot.
Yeah. It's hard because it was being done for thousands and thousands of years, right? And then it stopped for about 250 years, and now it's being revived. So there's been a huge time lapse. So there's a length of time that's required to do a lot of training, and our training and verification and our certification processes are quite unique in the way that they're associated with cultural knowledge. So these guys need to be trained. All the cultural fire practitioners that are undertaking the training need to be trained in each of the different vegetation types. So this is going to take time. And if I was to predict when we're going to be at this, I would love to say, in 10 to 15 years, it might be heading closer to being that word feasible.
I guess one of the challenges, if you're talking about the whole of Australia, is that and land ownership is split across many different types. And, you've got the various, as you mentioned, so many different vegetation types, seasons, so many variables, but also land ownership being with, the Crown or traditional owners or national parks, and private ownership. Some people have large swathes of land that's heavily wooded because that's a great thing to do. I imagine that would be quite a challenge, but it's great to see that, that this is gaining some momentum. Tell us, has there been much interest from government at levels outside of, say, local land services?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I can definitely say from past experience that the level of support from government at the moment is more than what we've ever had, but it's not enough still. There's been the Royal Commission into the bushfires. There was some of our recommendations. The Fire Sticks Alliance was invited to put forward recommendations which were supported by the Royal Commissions, and those supports, the parts of our application that were supported have now gone into informing processes and policies moving forward. So those type of things take time as well, because as we know, the Royal Commission only finished this year as well too. So there's it's more than what has been done before, but there's a lot more to be done in that support.
And I guess a lot of people to be trained as well, if you're looking at that, because it's a continuous process, as I understand.
That's right.
I had another question now. Stephen Bell has asked if there are any local hunter examples where cultural burning outcomes have been reported in the scientific literature. And by this, I mean documentation of changes or improvements to vegetation condition or floristic composition. I see this sort of thing as critical to help gain wider acceptance of the practice.
Yeah, awesome. And hi, Ian. I have been meaning to get in contact with you and actually meet you face to face. There's definitely a need for that. What we have done, what Fire Sticks Alliance has done, and I can announce, is that we've got ×2 research positions that will be going into the Hunter program to be able to facilitate that interaction. It's definitely needed.
Oh, that's fantastic. Awesome. All right, so that's those questions. I went into the chat as well. I can just see that somebody's saying hi, I think, Jess, and Reese Collins gets a mention.
Was there one there from Nathan Towney?
I saw that Nathan was in the list of people watching. So hi, Nathan. It's great that you're showing the interest there. Nathan has said, are there any examples of communities incorporating any parts of this knowledge into school curriculum or community structures to educate local youth?
Yes, particularly in Queensland. So the cultural fire calendars, so discussing these aspects, which are working documents that schools can do. This is also, I'm not sure whether it's still available on our website because we're doing some work on it, but this is downloadable for school students to start to understand that concept of understanding the different seasons within their local school, so they can start to identify those seasons and know that there's more than just the 4 that influence the application of cultural fire. There's also CSIRO have been working with developing different practical ways of understanding the Indigenous sciences behind the application of cultural fire and developing those young minds around that.
Fantastic, thank you. And there was another one that I missed as well. So Michael Cook has asked them, what other countries have similar programs?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I like that one because there are similar programs, and Victor has been sent to, particularly in America with the native, with the, I think it was in Canada. He went and there's Aboriginal communities over there, Indigenous communities that are actually trying to revive their knowledge over there too. So it's very similar. I think Australia for the first time is ahead of other nations, Indigenous nations at the moment in allowing cultural fire to be run and led by an Indigenous people within their local communities. A lot of the countries overseas have the authority, have to go under the authority of you know, the RFS or fire and rescue, their equivalents.
Mm-hmm. Very good. All right. Look, I'll just share the screen again. I've got a few photographs that have kindly been given to me by, well, I'm just sharing them basically. Can you see those images? If I put that on there now, can you see that photograph, Jess?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, we're in business. Okay, so I'm guessing this is the start of a educational piece.
Yeah. There's me. Yeah, so this is a discussion just before applying cultural fire. So this is that grounding moment where mob get to say who they are and their connection and start to go through their cultural protocols, which and talk about what we're about to do as well. So you can see Victor's arms out like this. He's talking about applying the fire, and we're about to head up the hill.
Mm-hmm. You can just take us through it, Jess, and Laurie, if you want to jump in, mate. I don't know if you're in this involved with this one or not, but Jess?
I couldn't get up that hill, girl.
It was incredible. Like that morning, it was misty and sprinkling, and we got up the top of the hill, and it was just beautiful and sunny. It was like country welcomed us with those different changes. And you can see here some of the Warramai boys. So Warramai Local Aboriginal Land Council with Victor talking about how the fire is going to be just trickling down and how it's going to interact. Yeah, that really important discussion of trust and understanding what you're about to do.
Mm-hmm. I'll just take us through the next one. Oh, we've set fire to something.
Yep, that explains a lot, that photo.
It does, doesn't it? There's nothing going rampant there.
No, there's you know, the smoke is great. You can see the leaf litter is interacting with it with a really low fire. And one thing that I did forget to mention before that this picture brings out is that we don't allow the fire to go up in cultural burning, to go up into the canopy, because that would be breaking cultural law. Mm-hmm. So that you're looking at a small shrub there, and you just want it to lick the bottom of the shrub as it eats up the leaves and any dead cured pieces of grasses, just to make way for the new. And there's Kel. Yeah, so Kel's really close, and like I explained before, you can actually get really close to the fire. He's about to do a discussion about as the fire trickles through. This is the ignition point at the top of the hill at Valley Arm, and he's talking to some of the attendant government representatives that were there for this one, and he's just about to put his hand where the fire has gone previously to show that that's quite cool after that, and to show the moisture underneath the soil.
Mm-hmm. It's a lovely ethereal shot, isn't it?
Yeah, that thin white smoke.
Yeah. So there's talk about, being able to basically walk around through this sort of smoke, and it's not a choking smoke. It's just something that's, doesn't get in the way too much, doesn't bother people too much.
Doesn't burn the eyes.
All right. We won't ask you for commentary on every photograph, but yeah, it's interesting to see. And this is afterwards, it looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to point out there, I guess, is, you know, you can see those scar marks from where the fire has gone through. If so you can see that it's really low to the ground, or the canopy's intact. And if you were to go past where, you know, a wildfire or an RFS, you know, hazard reduction burn, those sort of places, unfortunately, the fire gets up into the canopy, which just, you know, there's devastating effects in that instance. And these, in this one, we could see the bugs.
I think we might have lost you there, Jess. You still there, Laurie?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. I think, oh, there you are, Jess. You're back. You're moving again now. You froze for a second there, Jess.
Did I freeze?
Yes, you're back.
Sorry, I was talking about the bugs and the birds. Yeah.
Yeah, no, great. That's good.
That's on top of the ridge there.
Mm-hmm. Lovely country. Oh, there's a nice portrait.
Kelvin.
Yeah. Very good.
Got some charcoal in his face.
This is quite telling for me. This illustrates you know, as well as any of those photographs, what you were saying before about it being ground cover and not getting into the foliage above, you know.
So there's the evidence. It's pretty good, eh?
And it's all about knowing the country and the you know, where the leaves are at and how dry the country is versus, you know, in the right season, and not being too dry and not being too hot.
Yeah, you gotta. That's right. You gotta. Once you do the training and once you understand the landscape and then plan properly, you just don't go around lighting fires, Michael, and hope for the best, you know, or blah blah blah. It's a really, really scientific and a planned of management approach before you even light that fire. So it's well managed, and if you get on top of it, you know, you'll be able to rejuvenate that area, the soil, you know, the animals have time to move, and so it's just a no-brainer for all Australians to learn how to understand this, you know, 1,000-year-old practice.
There you go. That's the last photograph there. All right. Well, look, I'll just have a quick look and see if there are any other questions. Some people have said thank you and they have to head off, but apart from that, I don't think there are any other new questions. Look, and if any questions do come up, feel free to contact us or go through the Fire Sticks website. Look, we've come up to about the hour now, which I think is a pretty good chat. So, Laurie, Jessica, thank you so much for your time. It's been really fascinating hearing from both of you about your experiences with cultural burning. I don't know, I've got a fake screen on, but I don't know if you can see the Fire Country book.
Oh, you got the book.
Yeah, I'm about probably about a third of the way through, I guess, maybe closer to half. But it's fascinating just listening to the story, Victor's story about being educated by, you know, his uncles, the elders up north, and you know, he's done a great job of then educating others, and it's great to see that you folks are taking on that challenge and educating more and more people. I think it's really important knowledge to have. So thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. Wish you every success. Laurie, probably see you around the traps. Jessica, if you're in Newcastle, you never know, might catch up with you. Lots of people are saying thanks on the chat there, so that's great. But we'll draw to a close at just on 6 o'clock. I'm not sure if you guys had anything else you wanted to say just finally, any spruiks or by the book?
Oh, no. Just next year, there's a lot of good things happening between us we're actually, we're working in with the New South Wales Minerals Council, the mining companies, Liddell and Bayswater, AGL power stations on the conservation and biodiversity offset areas. We've done looking at working now with Mac Energy as well. We've got a few more burns up there to do, and Glencore. So Yancoal's on board. So we are now, implementing some really, really good practices and working in with Fire Sticks Alliance as well. So all
Fantastic.
good.
Thanks, Laurie. And Jessica, anything finally?
Just thank you for involving the Fire Sticks Alliance in this discussion and allowing us to really speak the truth about what cultural fire management is. I guess it's something that people are interested in, and we need these platforms to be able to have these discussions so that the right type of fire is able to be applied into the future. We're not just thinking about ourselves, we're thinking about our next generations that will come after us to be able to carry on this stuff too. So hopefully for many more thousands of years.
And that's what sustainability is all about. Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Laurie. Thank you to Ryan Jeffrey in the background who's helped to put the Zoom meeting together as well. Thank you all for coming, and look out for the next Hunter Environmental Institute webinar, seminar, whatever it is. Enjoy Christmas if we don't see you before. Thanks very much. Right, bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.